back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. Yes, Formula One is back. The 2023 campaign kicks off once again under the lights of Bahrain. And wow, it was a thriller, wasn't it? Well, I certainly enjoyed it anyway. Okay, we might have knew who was the winner from early on, but we really didn't know who that final podium was going to, did we? And we really didn't know what was happening in those final points paying positions. It made for an exciting finish, and I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it anyway, even if the winner was pretty much sorted from lap 1. So, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points though, they're sometimes on offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Now, at this moment in time, I would be showing you the point standings going into this round, but of course, because it's round 1, there's no need to do that. So we're just going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Max Verstappen. Well, as mentioned there at the start of the video, we kind of knew that Max was going to win it from lap 1. It came over the radio in the early stages going, I've got a problem with the upshifts and downshifts, they're a bit clunky, a bit grindy. But over the team radio, the team was just like, try Strat 8, and we never heard out about it ever again, did we? So it was all very much of a muchness there, just that little bit of drama, maybe the little bit of Hamilton-ness creeping in there of, oh, I've got such an easy race, I need to try and make it sound dramatic. Maybe a little hint of that there from Max, but nonetheless it was a dominant victory. Beat his teammate by 12 seconds, I think it was in the end, something like that anyway. But yeah, it didn't matter. It got the race under control. If he had to push, he could have pushed. He just saved his tyres. And it was a very boring but dominant victory by Max Verstappen. The Red Bulls clearly on top of this new season already. So for Max Verstappen, it's short and sweet. It's a perfect 10. Pole position, led most of the laps. Only didn't lead the laps on strategy when Perez got ahead briefly and then took a dominant victory. Can't be any less than 10, can it? A great start to his campaign in Formula 1 and a great start to his Crawl Room Championship as well, of course. So yeah, perfect 10 for Max. As mentioned, of course, finishing in second place is Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen's teammate. And what could be said for Sergio's race overall? Didn't get off well, did it? Didn't get off to the best of starts. Yeah, he got beat by Leclerc at the start there. Leclerc electing to save a set of tyres going into the final qualifying, so he didn't do an extra run, so he could start on the brand new softs at the start of the race. Leclerc had a good start, but Perez bogged down, and I think that's what really helped Leclerc get him through into the first few corners. And Perez was third for quite a while in that race, it must be said. But ultimately, not only the strategy, but the overall pace of that Red Bull came good towards the midpoint of the race, and he just overtook Leclerc with relative ease, built up a gap of about 6 or 7 seconds, and yeah, wasn't a threat behind, wasn't threatening Max ahead, and it was just a comfortable second place finish, netting himself 18 points. The team 43 out of the maximum 44 available, so a perfect start, near perfect anyway, for the Red Bull squad. For Sergio Perez though, I'm already going to be a little bit harsh with him, I've got to be honest now. This is the Crawl Room after all, and some people were saying, oh, a little bit generous at the start of last year and throughout most of the races I should have docked drivers more points. So this time around I'm going to be more ruthless. And for Sergio Perez, I am going to award him 7 points. He's getting 3 whole points less than Max Verstappen. And the reason for that is he simply wasn't on Max Verstappen's terms, was he? In qualifying, he was just over a tenth away, so you thought, okay, that's decent, should be good for the race. But him losing out to Leclerc at the start meant that Max had already built up a 7 or 8 second lead at that point anyway. And then when Perez eventually got past Leclerc, which took a lot longer than it should have done, Max at that point had already built up a big enough gap just to maintain and monitor his pace. So yeah, if Perez really wants to be a title contender this season, it's looking like it's just going to be between the 2 Red Bulls. He needs to make sure he gets the upper hand on Max, and quickly, because racers like that aren't going to win him a championship. So yeah, a harsh 7 perhaps, but it is the Crawl Room, and I'm starting it cruel. 7 points to Checo. Then in third place it is Fernando Alonso. Here he is, scoring a podium. I didn't jump on board the hype train, I must be honest. Everyone was saying, oh my god, he's fastest in practice, he looked good in testing, I reckon he could be on for pole. And I'm like, he's going to be 6th. He's going to be 6th or 7th. I think he's going to be behind the two Red Bulls behind the two Ferraris, and maybe beat one Mercedes if he's lucky. Well, I was slightly off with that prediction, and he ended up starting the race in 5th. The start of the race came. He had an initially good launch, but then lost out to positions because his teammate decided they were going to try and have a go and crash into the side of him. Thankfully, no damage for either Aston Martin there. Imagine if that ever happened at the start of the race. It would have been game over for both cars so early on. But as it was, of course, we had an exciting race there, all provided by Alonso. It was phenomenal, wasn't it? He dropped all the way down to 7th after the contact with his teammate, so lost out to the two Mercedes he out-qualified. Worked his way back through those on raw pace alone. And on strategy, did he get ahead? No, he didn't. He didn't get ahead of Hamilton on strategy alone, but came out a lot closer to him after his second pit stop and was really not hanging about with those tyres. He was like, yeah, sod's saving them. I'm going for this. And he made some cracking overtakes, some cracking manoeuvres. It was so good. Up the inside at that turn 10, it was beautiful. It was so nice to watch. We had some really scary moments at turn 4, of course, trying to get past Hamilton, where he had a full sideways lock just as it looked like he'd got him. Hamilton went straight back through again. He just had a little bit of everything, didn't he? And then to top it all off, he caught Carlos Sainz up and had a go at him as well through turn 11. Incredible drive by Alonso. So the hype train is there-ish, isn't it? It's there-ish. These people that were tipping pole position and oh my god, they could rival Red Bull, a little bit out of touch. But in a singular lap, it looks like they can beat the Mercedes at least, so get 5th and 6th in qualifying. And in the race pace overall, they can be knocking on the doors of podiums, because although Charles Leclerc did fall out of the race, Alonso still overtook Carlos Sainz on merit, and there were no problems with that Ferrari. So yeah, I honestly think that given a good qualifying and a great start to a race, they can look on course for podiums for the first half of this season anyway, and that is well above my expectations, that is. But that is a strong car, and Alonso, I'm awarding him 12 points on the cruel room. He did fantastically well, and I'm awarding him those bonus points because he deserved them. It was a great qualifying. The car looked to have the pace. He had a difficult start due to no fault of his own and carved his way back through beautifully with some fantastic manoeuvres, and he deserves 12. That's it. It's all said and done. In 4th place, it is Carlos Sainz, smooth operator, smooth. Well, he weren't that smooth, was he? He's in a Ferrari, he didn't finish on the podium, and his teammate was out at that. I mean, wow, that was a real surprise by Carlos there. After that virtual safety car period for his teammate pulling off to the side of the road, his pace just vanished. There was absolutely nothing there for him at all. He just struggled, and was lucky to finish ahead of Lewis Hamilton as well, it must be said, in those closing stages, because Lewis was in DRS, but I just think he ran out of tyres because both of those cars pitted around the same lap time. So with Hamilton being in the dirty air of Carlos Sainz, yes, the cars could overtake and slipstream a little bit better, but dirty air still exists. I do feel that, of course, that's what gave Sainz the edge of just being able to maintain himself ahead of Lewis Hamilton at the end there. So Carlos Sainz's race, qualified 4th, finished 4th. You look on paper and you go, yeah, that's all right. But it should have been a podium, really, shouldn't it? I know the race pace didn't look that great from a Ferrari, but come on, an Aston Martin. This is unheard of. They scored no points for the first however many races last season and were behind Williams at one point in the Constructors. That's how bad they did last year. And look at the turnaround in fortune. So dramatic. So for Carlos Sainz, overall, I'm going to award him a solid 7. He's getting the same as Sergio Perez. It's got to be cruel to be kind again, hasn't it? You know, I think if Carlos Sainz really wants to mount a serious attack, maybe a title attack, who knows? If Red Bull's reliability starts to falter like it did at the early stages of last season, Sainz needs to be there in those podium positions, picking up the points, and to finish behind an Aston Martin is going to be disappointed, isn't it? To finish behind your teammate, you'll think, yeah, okay, Leclerc 3rd, I'm 4th. It is what it is, that's the pace of the car. But when Leclerc retires, you think, right, I've got to be guaranteeing myself a podium here, and he didn't do that. So yeah, 7 points to Carlos Sainz. Then we come to Sir Lewis Hamilton. Here he is, finishing 5th position. A top 5 finish for Mercedes is not what they would have wanted, is it really? Have they taken a step backwards, perhaps, in terms of development? It's ever so strange, isn't it? You know, the end of last season, it was looking quite good for them. They were bringing home regular podium places after Canada last season. After they sorted out the bouncing, they started this season by not porpoising, not bouncing around, and you think, great, okay, there can be maybe rivaling Ferrari perhaps. Well, in the qualifying pace, it didn't look that way. Got split by the Aston Martins, and then the race pace overall is finishing 5th as a result of Leclerc's retirement and finished behind an Aston Martin and the Ferrari. Couldn't get the measure of Carlos Sainz. A difficult one to judge for Mercedes. I think they're going to be left with a lot of head scratching. No one was expecting them to be rivals to Red Bull, but I thought they'd maybe close the gap to Ferrari, you know, and it doesn't look that way. Maybe in race pace it looks a little bit better, but overall I just think that they still need a lot in the tank. They need a lot more to find. A lot more to find, they really do. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton overall, though, an okay qualifying, was out-qualified by his teammate George, but in the race he got ahead of him straight away, and that's where he stayed, was able to get the priority in terms of when the pit stops came, so that was good for Hamilton's race overall, and was able to get within a DRS range of Sainz, but not quite past him, and was able to finish ahead of Lance Stroll as well, which was crucial, I think, because I think Stroll really affected Russell's race, it must be said. So to get ahead of Stroll was a big talking point for Hamilton's race overall. I think that was crucial to how far up the field he got and securing that 5th place finish. So for Lewis Hamilton overall, it's going to be 8 points on the cruel room to him. A solid weekend overall by Mercedes. I think he did the best job he could with the car he's got at the moment. I really do think they have taken a bit of a step back, even though it looks like they've improved, but they really haven't, obviously. So yeah, there you go. A top 5 finish for Lewis Hamilton and 8 points on the cruel room. Finishing in 6th place and almost not finishing at all is Lance Stroll. Wow, oh wow, that lap 1 opener, that turn 4 where he just dove it up the inside of his teammate because he was trying to overtake George Russell. That was very close, that. Very close. Stroll got sideways. Alonso had a swapper on but managed to catch it, and thankfully no damage to either car. No puncture for Alonso and no front wing damage to Stroll is a miracle, an absolute miracle. Apart from that, though, did Stroll drive well? Yes, he did. I mean, we saw him in FP2 where he needed assistance to get out of the car. And I just said there and then on Twitter, I was like, nope, get him out of the car. You know, get Drugovich in, because this isn't working. He needs assistance out of the car. That can't be right. There's got to be something fundamentally wrong with his arms and wrists after breaking them, of course. But overall, he did a great job in the race, didn't he? And in qualifying, he didn't get out of the car badly. I think he's done a great job considering his injuries and considering where I think Stroll is, because I think a not broken Stroll with the car that he's got would finish here anyway. So the fact that a broken Stroll's managed to finish inside the top 6, where's a good Stroll going to finish in this? You know, a Stroll on the day, we've seen an odd performance here and there from him, but if he can get it together, could he be rivaling for podiums? Oh, it seems so bizarre to say, but it could happen. It could happen. Of course, he's going to have a few more weeks recovering, and I really hope that this race and all this qualifying and testing hasn't done too much damage to his wrists for later on in the season. You know, there's all this ethos about coming back too soon, and I really felt he should have sat this weekend out. But, you know, finishing in 6th place, I think, is a very respectable result. So for Lance Stroll, it is going to be 8 points on the cruel room to him. Overall, a solid weekend, but I have got to knock him a couple of points off for that audacious move at turn 4. I know he wasn't trying to overtake Alonso, but my God, that was literally millimetres from disaster for both of them. You know, if it had not just hit him the way it had hit him, it'd have been a rear puncture and a front wing off, and that would have been Aston Martin's hopes of maybe even points gone in turn 4 due to Stroll's error. So I do have to be ruthless a little bit there to knock him off a couple of points. But overall, a solid weekend that I can't really fault. And let's not forget, he missed the 3 days of testing as well. So he really has come and proven that that car's decent, because Stroll's up there doing great things. So yeah, well done to Lance Stroll. 8 points to him. Then we come to George of the Russell. Where the hell's that top 5? Here he is finishing in P7. Oh dear, George. As mentioned, I think that Stroll really impacted on Russell's performance. He lost out to Hamilton at the start, and then that meant that Hamilton had priority when it came to the pit stops. And Hamilton then had the better strategy. Russell called on the radio a couple of laps before he was actually called into the pit saying, my tyres are dead, I need to stop. And he was left out there struggling. And that's when Stroll got past him. Alonso got past him there as well at that stage, didn't he? And then he was behind Stroll and he just couldn't get around him. The dirty air, I think the Aston Martin's overall slightly better. In the hands of Stroll, it's a little bit impeded by Stroll's injuries, but still quick enough to hold a Mercedes behind him. And in the end, that's what cost Russell a potential top 5 finish, a chance to get onto the back of his teammate, perhaps as well. But yeah, I mean, P7, P5, does it really make any difference? Not really, to be honest, does it? So, yeah, for George Russell, outqualified his teammate in qualifying, which is more than respectable against a 7-times world champion. In the race, lost out to him at the start, and that was crucial for his race overall, because he was put on the less favourable strategy, because he was the second car. That's how it happens, that's Formula 1. The lead car always gets priority. And, yeah, unfortunately this time around it was George Russell finishing in P7, behind Lance Stroll. P7 in the finishing results and 7 points on the cruel room. It's going to be the 7 wall, I think, today, isn't it? The 7 room. But yeah, overall, I think George, great job. Deserves a point less than his teammate, though, because he just didn't have a good a start. And that's the end of that. Yeah, 7 points to Russell. Then we come to the 8th place finish of Valtteri Bottas. Well done, Valtteri. Big round of applause from me. That was a solid effort, that, wasn't it? I enjoyed watching his race, although we didn't see much of it. Qualified in P12, had a great start to get up to 9th. Then he elected to pit early, or the team did anyway, which was a great strategy call by Alfa Romeo, because then we saw him ahead of Stroll and Russell briefly. He was as high as 7th, wasn't he, at that point, with Leclerc still being in the race, of course. And yeah, he did really well. He drove smart as well at that point. He made sure that, yeah, he did put up a bit of a defence when George came knocking and when Stroll came knocking, but he didn't go, like, really over the top and try and ruin it. You know, he was like, look, I'd like to stay ahead of these guys, but this isn't my race. So what I'm going to do is, not going to make life too difficult for them. I'm going to make sure I get DRS on them for a couple of laps to keep with them. And that's what he did. And he pulled out like a 6 or 7 second gap to the car behind, which was Albon at that point. So he was in no man's land, running around in a solid P9 position, going, yeah, I've got this sus, lads. And then when Charles Leclerc dropped out, he ended up in P8, of course. He came very close to being overtaken by Pierre Gasly at the end there, but defended well, held him off, and did a great job. So congratulations, Valtteri Bottas. That was a solid race weekend overall. Alfa Romeo was expecting to struggle a little bit overall. I wasn't expecting this kind of pace from him this early on. I certainly wasn't expecting the dizzy heights and the fantastic results of the early races in 2022, but I was thinking maybe they can score an odd point here and there. I wasn't expecting 4 points at Bahrain this weekend, I'll tell you that for free. So 4 points for Valtteri Bottas in an 8th place finish is absolutely fantastic, holding off Gasly as well. It's going to be 9 points on the cruel room to him. A really solid job. Very happy with that for Bottas, and really happy for the Alfa Romeo team as well. They look very good. So yeah, 9 points to Valtteri Bottas. As mentioned, chomping at the bit at the end of the race is Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, trying to find a way around Valtteri Bottas, but it just couldn't be done. Valtteri made that Alfa Romeo as wide as he could to avoid losing out a position towards the latter stages of the race. Pierre Gasly, though, I mean, what could be said for his race weekend? It looked like a right disaster, didn't it? Out in Q1 with a lap time good enough for 17th place, and then he had that disallowed off him for track limits, so started last. Not a great start there, is it? But here he is. He was one of the early stoppers. I mean, he may as well have done, because he was around 14th, wasn't he, when he made his pit stop? So we have made some progress. Was one of the early stoppers, a bit like Bottas, and took a real advantage by the undercut. I think everyone kind of realised, oh, he's at the back, he's all right, we don't need to worry about him. And then it was like, oh shit, yeah, he's actually our race, he's matching his race pace now. Bollocks, get our cars in. And Gasly went storming through. So yeah, fantastic recovery effort to finish P9 from P20. And for Pierre Gasly, it's going to be 9 points on the cruel room to him as well. A solid job. Very impressed with that. I think, you know, as he went forwards, his teammate went backwards, but we'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, overall for Gasly, what looked like it was going to be a disastrous debut for Alpine has resulted in a couple of points. And although he won't be overly satisfied with that, and the team won't be overly happy, at least it's a couple of points on the board going into Saudi, where hopefully they can have a stronger weekend. So yeah, 9 points to Gasly, a great recovery, but I do have to knock a point off for that qualifying because it was a bit poor. And then we come to the final points paying position. It's Alex Albon. Oh, well done, Alex, and well done, Williams. They have built a great car, haven't they? Well, it's not. Let's not say amazing. You know, it's not groundbreaking. It's not up there doing 1-2s like the Red Bulls. But that car looks very, very solid, didn't it? It was an easy Q2 appearance for Alex Albon. Out in Q1, no problems at all. He was like 8th or 9th on the road. Q2, unfortunately, a big lump of rubber got stuck in between his front wing on his only flying lap in Q2. And, yeah, just dislodged all the airflow. It was like the front wing was missing, effectively, he said. Lost a second in Sector 1, then went off the road, so it had been track limits anyway, and then ended up off the road again, which is just unbelievable. So, had it not been for that big lump of rubber getting stuck into his front wing, we could have seen him qualify as high as 12th, I feel, realistically. But as it was, he lined up in 15th, which again is still more than respectable. A Q2 appearance, a great effort. And in the race, it was up into the points early on, wasn't he? He was knocking on the door of 11th and 10th area for quite a while. Williams initially decided to go for the definite we're confirming a 2-stop, didn't they? Which is what some people thought, oh, could be a bit of a wrong strategy here, going soft, so committing to that second stop and then onto the hards. Well, it worked out for Alex Albon, of course, because there he was, finishing in 10th place. And let's not forget as well, when the virtual safety came out for Charles Leclerc, Albon was one of the first to benefit from that. So had an additional stop and put another set of soft tyres on, which worked out really well for him because that was just what he needed to keep Tsunoda behind him. He was chomping at the bit towards the end there. It was so agonising at the end there, though, wasn't it? Because everyone was looking at the fireworks going off and was like, there's still 2 cars racing between Yuki and Albon. Who's going to get this point? And it was Alex Albon in the end. So, yeah, a solid job in qualifying, a wonderful race. It was a great strategy by the team. It was great pace by Alex. It was running around in that 9th, 10th area for a long, long time and thoroughly deserved that points paying position. To start the 2023 season off with Williams with a point is really, really job well done for them. So congratulations, Alex. Congratulations, Williams. It's 10 points on the cruel room to him. It has to be perfect 10, that. I don't think he could have done any better than what he did there. And he did a great job to hold Tsunoda off at the end. So well done, Alex. Well done, Williams. 10 points on the cruel room. Then we come to just outside the points, and it's Yuki Tsunoda finishing in 11th. Unlucky for some, I'm afraid, really. He was so close to Albon, but just couldn't find a way around him. Albon making that Williams nice and wide. What could be said for Tsunoda's weekend overall, though? A Q2 appearance in qualifying, more than respectable. For the car that he's in, the AlphaTauri looks okay, but not amazing. And then in terms of the race, he was just running around the mid-pack, milling around, wasn't he? And then chomping on the bit at the end there for that final points-paying position. Yeah, overall, I think he had a great, solid weekend. It was no mistakes, no crashes, no spins, no silly, audacious moves that were never really on. So if this is a more mature Tsunoda going forwards, the car's maybe not got the pace for points all the time, but if it can be knocking on the door of them, then that's more than respectable. So Yuki Tsunoda, I'm going to score him a cautious but a fair 7.5. I don't think his race performance overall was good enough for 8, but I think 7, putting him in with the likes of Perez and Sainz, is a little bit harsh. So there he is with a 7.5. I can't even count. 7.5. There we go. We'll try again. To Yuki Tsunoda, I think is more than fair and respectable for a great performance by himself. Like I say, kept himself out of trouble. That's what Tsunoda needs to do to try and score points. And he was oh so close this time around. So yeah, there you go. 7.5 to Tsunoda. In 12th place is Logan Sargeant. What a debut for him. He finishes ahead of the other 2 rookies. Who would have been saying that at the start of the year? Who would have thought that Logan Sargeant on debut against Piastri and Nick De Vries. Yes, I know Nick De Vries did a race at Monza, you know, but he's still a rookie. Who would have thought that Logan Sargeant would have been the one beating a McLaren and an AlphaTauri? That's unbelievable, isn't it? But here he is finishing in 12th place and unlucky, you know, unlucky in qualifying to have the exact same time as Lando Norris, but unfortunately Lando did it just a few seconds before him, so that meant that it goes on who did it first. Lando did it first. He was out in Q1, but was so close to a double Williams Q2 performance, and that's only going to be a matter of time before that comes. Could even happen in Saudi. That was some great pace by Logan, and you know, in the end, he finished a lap down behind Alex Albon, but he didn't really, did he? I was shouting at the telly to tell him, just keep going, it's Max and he's on his last lap, he doesn't need to go past you. Just keep going, because if it all kicks off ahead with Tsunoda and Albon, you'll get the point. Just keep going, just keep going. But he did let Max through, and I think that could be a little bit of inexperience creeping in there. Maybe not being told it was the last lap by his team for Max behind, because even if it had got a 5-second time penalty for ignoring blue flags, it was still the last car. How great would it have been for both Williams to finish on the lead lap? It was just so close as well to doing it, but in that final sector, he let him go. So yeah, I'm not going to hold that against him. It was just a general observation of mine. I was like, oh my God, keep going, Logan. Just finish on the lead lap. But he was just so close, but no cigar this time around. But really, judging by the pace of that Williams and how well Alex and Logan have done in their first race weekend with the new car, especially Logan being a rookie, it was only 8 seconds behind his teammate. That's all he was at the end. That was fantastic. Well, a lap behind, but you know what I mean. Before he got lapped, he was about 8 or 9 seconds behind his teammate, and that is a commendable effort for a rookie. So fantastic effort, Logan, and it's going to be 9 points on the crawl room to him. That was a storming drive. That was really well. Racecraft was fantastic. Did some good overtakes on Zhou, and really, really delivered well. Great result for Williams, and a great result for a rookie to finish ahead of all the other rookies of the season. And yeah, fantastic effort. 9 points to Logan Sargent. Unlucky for some, finishing in P13, it's Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. And what could we say for Haas? Oh, it's maybe looking like the good over one pace again. 1 lap pace, looks decent. But then over the race pace, they chew the tyres to pieces and struggle to score points. I feel that's what's going to happen to them this season. It was a shame. You know, Magnussen's race weekend came undone really as a result of the qualifying, getting knocked out in Q1 as a result of traffic at the final corner. That unfortunately cost him all the time he needed to get through into Q2, and the team said that he was approximately 3 to 3.5 tenths up on that final position, the 15th for Lando, when he got blocked by traffic in the final corner. So yeah, unfortunate for K-Mag there. In the race itself, he was put on a compromised strategy, the only car to start on the hard tyres, which could have worked out well if you'd have had a safety car after all the other soft tyre runners that have had to pit for the hards. He'd have been in whatever position, he'd have been around the 7th, 8th area, wouldn't he, on his hard tyres at that point. And then if the safety car came out, he could have dived into the pits, had a relatively free pit stop, come out 11th or 12th, and been on much fresher tyres, ready to take the fight to the cars ahead. So I could see why they did it. You know, he was at the back of the grid anyway. No point going for the same strategy as everyone else, because you just all eggs in the same basket at that point. Mix it up a bit. Didn't work out that well for him, but ultimately here he is finishing in 13th place. And yeah, overall it was a bit of a forgetful weekend. We kind of forgot Haas were in the race, didn't we? After the glory qualifying of Nico Hülkenberg that we'll come to in a minute, they quickly dwindled away. So a big shame for them. And K-Mag, didn't see much of him in the race, but I think a middle of the road 5 is fair overall. Wasn't anything special, wasn't anything spectacular. It was unlucky with the strategy was put on at the start of the race. Unlucky in qualifying to get blocked by traffic, to not get through into Q2 and maybe see a better performance overall in the race had he had a better starting position. But yeah, it wasn't spectacular nonetheless. So yeah, 5 points to K-Mag. Then in 14th, we come to Nick de Vries, the second of the debutants, the rookies. Yes, I know he had Monza. And here he is finishing in 14th place. And oh, what a shame by de Vries. The team didn't pit him under the virtual safety car like everyone else had done. Everyone from, I think, 8th downwards, when the virtual safety car came out, had not crossed the start-finish line. So they could all get pit stops and everyone stopped for soft tyres, except de Vries, which briefly put him as high as 8th. But then he very quickly tumbled down the order because everyone had much fresher and much softer compounds of tyres, and was left like a sitting duck. And I do feel really sorry for de Vries. Before then, he was behind his teammate, wasn't he? They were 12th and 13th on the road together. So yeah, it'd have been 11th and 12th, perhaps. Maybe even finished ahead of Tsunoda. Maybe could have scraped through and got that point. So I can kind of see why AlphaTauri mixed it up a little bit there. Look, we've got two guys identical to each other. You know, maybe there's not a big enough gap to do a double stack without costing de Vries time anyway, which he won't recover. So let's just leave him on the hard tyres and see what happens. And unfortunately, he tumbled further down than where he actually was before the virtual safety car, which was a great shame. But, you know, again, I think Qualifying was a poor performance. Qualified last of the runners until Gasly had his lap disallowed. So, you know, lined up 19th. Had a good drive to come right up to the back of his teammate towards the latter stage of the race before that virtual safety car period. And then was just left like a sitting duck. So, I'm going to award him a middle of the road 5 as well. I think it's a fair score for De Vries there. Not the best overall performance of the weekend. Qualifying was very difficult for him. The race pace got better as the race went on, and then was just left out there like a sitting duck. So yeah, middle of the road 5 to Nick De Vries. A tough start to his AlphaTauri weekend and campaign, but I think he could only get better from here, and by no means did I think he were diabolical or bad. I just think, roll of the dice, it didn't go his way this weekend. So yeah, middle of the road 5 to De Vries. Then we come to, as Daniel Ricciardo would say, Nico Hülkenberg. Here he is, he's back. Nico Hülkenberg is back once again. And what could be said for his race weekend overall? Well, qualifying was the best bit of it, wasn't it? It's unfortunate to say that, but it really was. Qualifying in P10, his lap got disallowed for track limits, which is fair enough. That happens to most drivers, and it's clear rule. You can't go 4 wheels over the white line anywhere at the circuit. He did, and here he is down in here because, unfortunately, qualifying P10, he had a good start, decent-ish start, was putting Ocon under pressure, tagged the back of him, damaged his front wing and needed to have the wing replaced, but they didn't replace it straight away, did they? They decided to wait for the pit stop window to come in, by which point he'd already lost a lot of time anyway because of the wing being compromised, the downforce being compromised. Pitted, slow stop obviously because it's a wing change. And then we just really didn't see much of him from then on. And here he is finishing down in 15th position, which is a great, great shame. Yeah, to finish behind his teammate is unfortunate. 15th place is not what he would have wanted. He said before the race, oh, I'd be really happy if we could stay inside the top 10. And that just went within lap 1, unfortunately. So for Nico Hülkenberg, it's going to be 4 points on the cruel room to him. Yeah, a difficult one. I don't think the Haas has got the overall pace to stay up there as well, myself, thinking about it. I do think it's chewing and eating tyres up quite considerably, like they have been known to do in the previous seasons. But yeah, overall, it was that front wing damage that really cost him in the early stages to mean that he couldn't stay up there in a respectable position for very long. So yeah, 4 points to Nico Hülkenberg. 16th place, it is Zhou Guanyu, and what could be said for his return to the series, of course. Started the 2023 season off as a one-season veteran. Yes, that's right, he's got 1 full season under his belt. Everyone's expecting Zhou to do a little bit better, and in qualifying, he matched his teammate, didn't he? Valtteri lined up 12th, Zhou in 13th. Alfa Romeo were a little bit disappointed they lost out to the McLaren of Lando Norris, who lined up 11th. But yeah, in the race overall, he had a difficult lap 1, didn't he? And they've said this before with Zhou, he tends to lose out a lot of positions on the first lap. He's not aggressive enough. And again, we saw it. He tumbled down to as low as 17th at one point, battling with Oscar Piastri, who wanted to nip past him for 17th, but he managed to hold him off for that. But yeah, overall, you know, Zhou, I think his race got better as the race went on, got himself back up to a respectable 12th, 13th area, and then towards the latter stages of the race they realised, look, he's probably going to get lapped here, he's not going to score a point, let's get him into the pits and let's get him a fresh set of soft tyres on so he can secure the fastest lap point so they can take it away from Alpine, who was of course Pierre Gasly threatening the back of Valtteri Bottas in the closing stages, had that fastest lap point. So it was a wise decision by Alfa Romeo to say, look, Zhou's not going to score points, but we can take a point off a competitor, and here he is finishing down in 16th as a result. But I don't blame Alfa Romeo. Clever strategy that. They can already see where the rivals are going to be, and that could be a crucial point at the end of the season. Look how close it was between Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin at the last race. Had they not done something like that earlier on, if that opportunity presented itself, Aston Martin could have beat them. So, you know, wise moves by Alfa Romeo. Can't score a point with a car, let's take it off another one. Perfect strategy. And Zhou, unfortunately, wasn't in the points, so that's why they did it. But there you go. More than respectable results overall for Alfa Romeo. And for Zhou Guanyu, it's going to be 4 points on the cruel room to him. Again, you know, I don't think it was anything brilliant, anything spectacular. It was the master of his own demise in terms of, look, we need to pit you really to put some tyres on and get fastest lap. That's how it goes. That's how the cookie crumbles at times. But yeah, overall, I think it was an okay race, but just below average, really. Nothing special. So yeah, 4 points to Zhou. Then we come to the last of the runners. Lando Norris in 17th place. Wow, oh wow. It really just came all undone for McLaren this weekend, didn't it? As if qualifying wasn't bad enough, there was this glimmer of hope that Lando Norris qualified in 11th, and you think, oh, maybe there's something there in the early stage of the race. Oh no, we need to keep topping your air pressure up, pal, because we've got a problem. He did 6 pit stops in the end, and unfortunately finished here last of the runs. But fair play to him for keeping him running. You know, they could have easily retired that car early on, but no, they thought, right, the sponsors need some advertising, not that you're going to see much of them. But Lando Norris overall, I'm going to treat him like a retirement, effectively, because he was out before the race really began, wasn't he? The problems crept in at the first pit stop phase, which was around lap 12, so it was a disaster, wasn't it? So yeah, middle of 5 points to Lando Norris overall. I've treated him as a retirement. That's all I can really do. Does he deserve more? Absolutely, but what more can I give him? You know, it was an okay qualifying, a decent performance, but the race, I couldn't judge. You know, had he got his elbows out a little bit more, had he been in the race for a little bit longer and doing well, I could have maybe scored him a few more. But yeah, as it is, I've treated him as a retirement, and it's the middle of the row 5 to Lando Norris. Then we come to the first retirement on this list, the last in the race, of course, and it is Esteban Ocon.
First race of the season. Certainly wasn't the same without me.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's Latifi of the week. Here we go. We can't get Jolyon Palmer because he's joined Channel 4 commentary. He's sacked us off. But I've managed to give Latifi a call. Good old Nicholas. And I said, look, how do you fancy being the next shittest driver to award Latifi's of the week? Oh, and he absolutely chomped at the bit to do it. And he was like, Josh, that'd be a great idea. I really, really love being a shit driver in Formula 1, and I love to score shit drivers' performances a Latifi of the week. So here we are. We've got him. We've copyrighted him. We've got him. He's secured. We've got him for at least the next... Oh, just this season? Who knows? He might join Channel 4 commentary next and they might sack Jolyon off. Well, they had problems in qualifying, didn't they? Channel 4 had problems in qualifying. It went off. It went off the qualifying highlights and Channel 4 had a problem. Well, you recruit Jolyon Palmer, that's what happens. So yeah, for Esteban Ocon, it is a Latifi of the week. How many penalties do you want? Just keep dishing them out to me. I love it, I love it, I love it. Oh, God, honest to God, it was like a bondage session with the FIA there, isn't it? Talk dirty to me. 10-second time penalty. Ooh, 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 I like it, I like it. But please don't stop, please don't stop. And he ended up, I think it was, what was it, 25, 30 seconds worth of penalties in the end. I mean, fair enough, it started with his own fault. You know, it started with him not lining in his grid box correctly, which gave him a 5-second time penalty. So he had to serve that, which the team didn't serve correctly, which gave him 10 seconds. So that's a team error, but had Ocon not made that first problem, then you wouldn't have had the second problem. And then as he was serving the 10-second one, he had a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Oh no, Esteban. I mean, his qualifying was great. Ninth in qualifying. He was running round in ninth, and then it all just came undone when that 5-second time penalty happened. Oh dear, oh dear. So yeah, there you go. Latifi of the week, which is effectively a nil point, but it's worse than a nil point because you get a Latifi at the side of your name. Yeah, Latifi of the week to Esteban Ocon. And then we come to Sha la la. Oh, sacre bleu, sha la la. Oh, où est la fenêtre et voilà. Oh God, where is the window? I bet he wants to throw himself out of one. Honest to God, has Ferrari really started the season like this? Oh, I don't believe it. I mean, we were already had alarm bells ringing, and before the start of the race, they had to change the batteries overnight because there was a problem with those. And they've only got 2 for the season, so that's 2 used up. And you think, oh my God, we're going to be facing penalties already. And then the fact that the engine failed. I mean, the team confirmed it was an engine unit issue. So, I mean, unless it could be really lucky and just a sensor that went down, have we already lost a set of batteries and an engine for Charles Leclerc in one round? Oh dear, sacre bleu, sha-la-la. So unfortunately for Charles Leclerc, is there really much point in talking about his race because he ended rather rapidly? He was running around in second, which was a great effort, qualified third, best of the rest, really. Couldn't get a match for the Red Bulls. Elected to save a set of soft tyres, which worked out because he leapfrogged Perez. Lost out Perez eventually and was running around in a solid third place and then broke down. So yeah, there you go. Charles Leclerc's race summed up just like that, unfortunately. So for Shalala, unfortunately, as you know, with the retirements, I can only score them a maximum of 5 points. Just to keep it fair for the drivers that carried on racing. You know, I don't think it's always fair to award a driver 10 points for not finishing. So yeah, a maximum of 5 points is going to be awarded to Shalala for his retirement because he'd done nothing wrong up to that point and the car just shat itself. So yeah, 5 points to Shalala. He'll be hoping for a turn in fortune rather soon. But will it come? Who knows? Ferrari things, innit? And then we come to the last on this list, which is, of course, Oscar Piastri. I come from a land down under. Yes, and if you turn the results upside down, it means he won the race. But unfortunately, this is reality and not men at work with a land down under. Yeah, the McLaren seems to love Australian drivers, though, doesn't it? That second seat, anyway. But here he is. Oh, I mean, I suppose the other Australian is laughing his head off. I bet he's glad he's a reserve driver at Red Bull now after seeing that performance from McLaren. That was piss poor, wasn't it? Yeah, he had a total gearbox failure, gear shift failure, wasn't it, actually, to give the proper terminology to it. Gear shift failure early on. He managed to coast it to the pits where they thought, right, let's change the steering wheel. We're sure it's that. Oh, no, it's not. It just turns out the entire car's fucked. Right, okay, park it up, lads. Stick it in the back. Stick it in the back. We'll see you in Saudi if we can make it, provided the trucks don't break down. Honestly, it was unbelievable, wasn't it? What a shame for Piastri on his debut to have a problem so early on. And I'd like to say, oh, I bet he regrets not signing with Alpine, but Alpine really didn't do that much better either, did they? So, yeah, there we go. Oscar Piastri, out of the maximum of 5 I score retirements, I'm going to award him 4. I think he deserves 4 points at least, doesn't he? You know, his qualifying performance wasn't great, but Lando only just scraped through Q1. And in the race, it was running around 18th, 17th, that kind of area, which is a McLaren place to be when it's absolutely dog shit, and then it broke down. You know, I think I deserve to give him 4 points just for dragging it to the pit lane with no downshift. Yeah, anyway, big disappointment to Oscar Piastri, but there we go. That's one of those things. So yeah, 4 points to Piastri. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Cruel Room from the Bahrain Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The scoreboard is on the screen now for you to take a look at. Oh, what's all this? It doesn't look like that's in order, does it? There's drivers everywhere there that have scored points. Palmer's. There's bonus points there for Alonso, but he's not at the top of the leaderboard. That's right, we've got a brand new leaderboard going into it as well. Take a look at that while you're at it. There it is on the screen now for you. Thank you so much to Dan of formerly Mushy Gaming. He's just called himself Dan Bartlett now, which is his name. Great stuff there. Yeah, but thanks as always to Dan for providing me with the intro that you saw, the drivers that you saw at the corner of the screen I was talking about them, and the scoreboards that you've just seen on your screen now. A special thanks go out to Dominic Orlando for providing me with the Nicholas Latifi voiceover, and of course a massive thanks as always go out to Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the complete Latifi skit that I know you're all going to know and love. So there we have it then, guys. That was the Bahrain Grand Prix. As always, like I said, let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. I thought that was a thriller. And I'm going to see you all in a couple of weeks' time for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.